right, so now is the time where Pete is going to ask a question, whatever that is. So let's see where we go, Pete.
All right. So I'm going to wave a magic wand. COVID is done, but there's another virus. But we've figured out how to manage this thing, and we're still traveling. We're actually interacting in a personal way in this new era that we're coming up on. So where do you see, what is the plan for getting activation techniques, philosophy into the hands of more and more practitioners around the world, and bringing this to more people?
All right. So part one of that is what I'm actually doing right now. And that is, I'm writing a book. And so we've got a group in the social media we call our conversation starters, and they help answer questions that are doing an amazing job. I just sent a mail out to them and said, top 20 questions that your clients have that you have. And we compiled, and then a whole lot of other people just put stuff in, and I've compiled that. And the goal is to put that through, because there's a framework, but there's a whole lot of stuff that people who've done this a lot think there's still questions that you don't have the answers to. And I'm not saying I'm going to answer every question, but basically it would be like something that might be in your gym. You might have a whole, a client, you start doing the stuff and your client goes, whoa, this is amazing. How do I find out more? You go, well, that's awesome. We've got a book over there. We either loan them out, or you can buy one, or you can, and so what it is, it's about, because the goal of the game is to educate people about themselves. So we do that through the framework called Be Educated, BeActivated. And so we educate that way. And so it feels like it wasn't my initial plan, but what happened is the interview that I did with Tim last week is each time people have asked questions, and this is why the question part is so important for me, because the questions create a sequence of thinking so that we get better answers. If we ask things that have a set answer, then we're not learning anything. And so people have asked questions like this, but I'm answering them differently. And what I realized in the answering Tim's question, that part of where I went was the goal is actually to get this, that everybody knows about it. Now, you might go, but Doug, that's obvious. But you see, for me, it hasn't been obvious. Knowing about it doesn't mean you have to agree with it. That's the important thing. That, because my brain has been going, how do I take this out and make them understand how awesome this is? And, they must get it. But you know what happens, and it's a very biblical idea of sowing seeds, where some will lie in rich soil with great texture, and will, and others will land on the roadside, and the birds will peck away at it. But I think the goal of the game would be, guys, this is here. Whether you like it, you're indifferent, or you love it, awesome. But don't ever say you didn't know. Don't ever say you didn't have a choice. When someone goes, oh, this is the only thing I can do. No, there is actually this. And you chose not to look at it. You chose, or you don't like it. It's never a judgment if someone doesn't want to do this work, because we're not in that place. But I think that it's shifted it's given a clarity on that's actually what's got to happen. So writing a book that answers the gray areas is a start.
Yeah, it's a good start. And since since you brought up a parable, let's go down that road a little bit more. What about the seed that gets sown on shallow soil and sprouts up and gets all excited, but then the naysayers and the people come because they don't have access to a community to actually support them on this journey? And I don't fall into that category, but I'm a bit of an island in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The main form of activation.
There it says, Peter's going to ask about the teacher training program. There we go.
No, and I'm not even going there, but I could.
No, but so that is part of it. It is it's having conversations with people, and you know, about 2 weeks ago, I got hold of Nuno in Portugal, and I said, listen, all this uncertainty that's going on is not helping. So what I'd like to suggest is that we pen in a date in March where we have our first event in the BeActivated International Training Center, and I'll work backwards. So we'll do like an online training for 8 weeks before that, da 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 da. And I'm thinking he's going to go awesome, and he goes, I don't think we can do that. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, well, it looks like at this point, and that was 2 weeks ago, that Portugal is going to follow the Spain model, and that sounds like lockdown almost into May next year, like
we're
all of those sort of things. And so I was
accurate.
like, oh crap! All right, what do you know? And so it's trying to have enough certainty to plan something. And you know, when I did, I can't even remember the name of the course, but it was with Brian Rose at London Real, and basically you do this 8-week program, and part of it is, and you have 2 days in London where you learn how they launch stuff and how they do all of this, which was meant to be probably about 3 months ago. And then they moved it to later on in the year, and then to next year, and then it's whenever we're allowed to do it. So it may be that we have to do that, but the idea would be, it's definitely time. You know, online training, the online stuff's really good, and the people who it is like
it is. Well, what I'm smiling about is I just did an activation last week on a woman who owns a dental practice, and she was kind of blown away by the process. She's just signed up for your online course.
Excellent. No, but that's great. No, but the
Yeah.
thing is that if people can go through this and start applying it, and then obviously when we get to a hands-on, there's a different level of personal learning, feeling, all of that. But I think using technology and using the online stuff, and then you know, we are going to do stuff. The minute I can travel, I'm gonna do that. And it's not like I can't get on a plane and leave South Africa. I can, but the environment for learning and teaching isn't there yet. And too many places, when I get to the other side, I've got to go sit in quarantine for 2 weeks, and so those are not conducive environments. So, but the thing is, you know, the two schools of thought that have been coming out because of the questions that I'm being asked. The first one is like a teacher training program, and the second one that has come up a lot since I did the session with Carla is a mastery program. How do we literally start at the beginning and go and go and go through each step? And Doug, will you hold our hand almost and walk us through? And the answer is, yeah, we can actually do that too. I've got a few steps that I've got to move out, like get done with first. And I think the book is important because it almost upskills people without too much complexity. So it just brings so maybe those who kind of get excited, but the seed landed in the shallow earth. They just someone goes, oh, that's a load of rubbish. Here's a book. You know, it's, you know, read the book. Once you've read the book, tell me what's rubbish. And if they go, it's still rubbish, awesome. But most of the time when someone reads the book, this is why, like I always say, I love skeptics on the workshops. Skeptics, you don't have to sell the whole 9 yards to them. You just have to show them it might have some validity. That's it. It's the people who think this is going to be the greatest miracle of their entire life, they scare me far more, because 99% is still a failure. You know, skeptics, people who have got like genuine, like they want to learn, and like, how many times have you heard me say, don't take my word for it. What happened in your body? Go test it, go feel it, because it's easy to, you know, do all the bells and whistles and shiny stuff, but at the end of the day, does it work? Yes or no? It's the only thing that's actually important, because if the answer is no, well, then shame on us. But the thing is, we believe in this, and I believe in it, not because I came up with it, but because it's just such magic watching what people can do. Just like when the dude stands up and you go, whoa, we see that with kids. You watch a 5-year-old stand up and own their space. That's, you know, and that's the stuff where, yeah, it's the possibilities there are exciting. And so I've got steps to take, and I think there's been so much learning that I've had to do, and so much like uncomfortable learning, because it's like going into all the places that I didn't really want to be. Like the most comfortable place that you can put me is like throw me in front of 1,000 people and say, hey Doug, talk to them for 5 days. You know, if you go and check my heart rate, my blood pressure, it goes, oh God, this is so easy. Because that is my comfort zone. This like we're doing, this is also pretty comfortable. But the kind of talking to computer screens and setting up stuff, and it requires a different part of me, and that's growing and getting better. But it's friggin' hard. You're doing it too, so you know.
Yeah, by definition, all of that computer screen and book writing is pretty solitary. and spending 6 days with you in Milwaukee was exhausting, because, you know, when you've got introvert meeting one of the more extroverted guys, or at least people that get energy from other people. Woo. I was like, damn, dude. It's go time.
Yeah, but you see, but that's also why my strategy was get on a plane, turn on fully.
Yeah.
You know, Chris Corfist always used to laugh, like, because we did so many programs, and the like, so let's say I was finishing on the Sunday, and on Sunday night I'd fly back to South Africa. So and also people don't fully understand. It like from Chicago to South Africa was 25 hours. You know,
right.
That's what every time I teach, it's a commitment. That's why there's also a big switch off at the end. And I only get on a plane now if it makes sense. Whereas there were times where I just got on a plane. But what would happen is I'd finish the workshop. We would go and we'd get food from some terrible place that was cheap and easy, and you know, drive through, and we'd go to his house. We'd eat, and somewhere between we'd have to just quickly sort out finances and just go, and there was a point where I just go into a zombie mode, and so when from his house to the airport, like I'd just be sitting there like that, and he would always go, I don't even know how they let you through security, because you look like you're drugged up. I go, it's so autopilot, but because the job is done, tick off, you know. And so I think it's one of the important things of how we can do life, not should, can do life.
Yeah, everybody's wired different.
Choose to be all on. You know, I'm a go big or go home. When I'm on, and when I'm off, I'm off. And that's why like people are like, but I tried to get hold of you. If I'm off, if I'm disconnected, I don't exist. You know.
Right.
Or maybe it's the other way. I do exist, therefore you don't. I don't. And but all of that's a strategy. So all of this is different, you know. And it's like, and I think also with the like writing the book isn't just, oh, I'm going to write a book. Like anything, I'm going to experts to learn. And so I'm learning the most effective way for what I need to do, for what I want to do. Because what I've realized is, like anything, if I get a framework that works, then this won't be the first one. You know, I'm sure I've got like a horror in my head. That if you have a system, stick it in. I don't know, whatever. But the idea would be, I'm learning a process. So I'm not like just sitting going bloop 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 bloop. I want to learn a process. And like, for example, you know, I had a framework I thought was working, and then I realized actually I'm getting stuck in it. But what I'm really good at is mind maps. And so I've been using mind mapping software for years. And the one I'm using, I suddenly went, hang on, what happens if I take the conversation in my head and answer those questions? And next minute, I've gone 2 hours and I've extracted and extracted and extracted and extracted. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I'm thinking. That's that them, and how to now put it together in a way that someone reading it for the first time, it makes sense, because it can't be my colloquial language. It's got to be
Right.
it's got to be as we teach, simple language. So we're taking something that has a complexity to it, but putting it into a simple format in a simple way that someone, when they leave, they understand more. Maybe not everything, but more. And that's all it is. And so, like, the goal of the book would be somebody reading it would be able to walk away, and if you said, hey Doug, you've just read this book, what is BeActivated? You'd go, oh well, this is what BeActivated is, and this is why it would be really good for you, and this is why it would be really good for me. Two totally different things. So they'd actually be able to have a conversation. If someone said, well, how do you do the testing? Well, I don't really know, because that's not part of what this is.
Right.
And like, one of my favorite books was on structural integration by Ida Rolf, and that's, she was all the fascist stuff long before it became something everybody did. And the first book of hers that I read was amazing, because she spoke about the philosophy of the way she saw the body. She wasn't teaching you technique. She wasn't talking about, and now slide this and do, she was talking about the lines that, and the way she described the body. So for me, that was what I was looking for. I wanted to know how she thought. And I finished that book and I knew how she thought. Not completely, because there were certain parts which was confusing, but some of that is also profound, because that's also links in with how we talk about the sowers in BeActivated, is because of the way she described it, that made no sense. And when I asked lots of people in that world, they just didn't know. And but actually, with better information, asking more questions from different places, the answers came, and now it makes complete sense. So it was a part of a puzzle. So it's all important. So yeah, so I think, um, having the clarity on what the long game is,
Yep.
actually everyone should know about it. They don't all need to agree with it, but they should all know about it. That's would be the, like, the base point, and then from there, what is then needed in order for that to happen and facilitate that. Whereas before, I think my end point was very vague, you know and so therefore it was more, well, I could do this or I could do that, yeah, but if it's everyone should know about it, then the base philosophy needs to be known. Then it's very easy to niche it down and say, well, the golfers need this and the cyclists need that, and the you take your pick. And understand that if we develop a language, it's kind of like we were talking, when we were in Milwaukee, is how, if we were able to get like a base learning of the principles into the schooling system, then it just becomes normal for the kids. So then imagine all it becomes, that over 2 weeks you learn different concepts, and that becomes your base, and then you specialize, or you can, hey, my elective is going to be how this applies to me in my athletics, how this applies to me in my basketball, how this, and then all it is it takes the almost the generic, and it defines it into a place where it's more specific, so that to help people almost then sharpen the sword to the tip. So it's,
well, and when you get to a point where there's potentially a beta version of that, I'm starting to explore doing some work with a school in Milwaukee. It's a charter school called Howard Fuller Academy. And so charter schools are publicly available, but not part of the public school system. They tend to perform at a much higher level because
is that one of those Andre Agassi schools?
no,
Is that, but his are charter schools as well.
They very well could be. I'm not familiar with Andre Agassi doing charter schools. These are schools that they perform at a much higher level. They tend to be great options, especially in inner cities where the public school system is so broken and so bogged down by bureaucracy and unions that they've broken out and they're building these charter schools.
Okay.
They're competition, and they would be a place. I'm starting to have a conversation with them about BeActivated and simply teaching zone 1 parasympathetic breathing. How can we have this conversation? But a curriculum to a certain extent that the teachers went through, that they could then understand what the philosophy of, and I'm being simple, the philosophy of living in a parasympathetic way is part of what your book is.
Well, the simple thing is, imagine teaching, in an environment that's more chilled out and people, so chilled out but more focused. And
yes.
So your potential for raising the bar for everybody then becomes a possibility.
Yeah. And they get to spend time with that influential person 8 hours a day. And eventually that child, that student, starts taking some of that focused chill to their neighborhood, to their family, to blah, blah, blah. So,
and it's not even eventually, that was the big thing with what Tom and Eric achieved at Nazareth. So working with the football team, great results, state champions, awesome. But for me, the bigger thing was the reflection of those same boys in their classes were becoming less disruptive, better students, better socially, therefore better leaders. And they were changing the culture within the learning environment because of what they were learning within their team on the field.
Yeah.
And nobody told them to do that. They took that because it's that whole thing of when hacking stories, when we say hello to people. If you tell me something about you here, I promise you we can extract that. Because if we can find a pattern of behavior there, what you do here, you do everywhere, which means we can reverse engineer that. And so we can take you into a place like a football field, and we can create a set of principles and a way of being. And we know that you are then, when you start living that here, you will start living that everywhere.
Yeah.
So, it's about creating
awesome.
a place to learn. Yeah.
Good deal. Yeah.
Thanks, that's very cool. I appreciate it.